What's up, guys? Jack here at Black Bear Crypto. Today we're going to discuss the emerging situation that is Evergrande. For those who don't know, Evergrande is a Chinese real estate company that is currently threatening to default on liabilities exceeding $300 billion. I'm making this video because I think a lot of mainstream media outlets aren't taking this crisis seriously. For instance, as we can see here, Jim Cramer has recently said that he believes the U.S. economy, isn't going to face serious repercussions because of China's Evergrande. He also said that he believes that China is going to stop the crisis at their borders. I like Jim. I do listen to him often, but I do not think that he is correct on this one. I think that the U.S. and the Chinese economies are extremely intertwined, and the idea that China is going to stop it at its borders and it's somehow not going to affect the U.S. market seriously is not a correct evaluation of the level of exposure and risk that is currently present right now. He also said that he believes that this is President Xi's first true mistake when it comes to the economy. I might agree with him on that one. But the issue here is not just the $300 billion. It's all the companies, including many U.S. institutions, for example, BlackRock. Here it is. BlackRock is one of the biggest buyers of Evergrande's debt. BlackRock is a U.S. financial institution. There are many companies that are intertwined with this potential debt snowball. So there's so many different companies that have exposure to Evergrande, and if Evergrande defaults and can't pay back their bondholders, those bondholders won't be able to pay off their debts either. Regardless of if China bails them out, it could cause a chain reaction that is, in my opinion, as bad or worse than the 2008 financial crisis. So I think this crisis has the potential to hit the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 very hard. I think we could see a 20 or maybe even a 30% correction depending on how China reacts to this. Again, I'm not trying to spread FUD here. This situation could fizzle out, but if Evergrande really does default on $300 billion, this could be very, very bad. So I'm getting prepared, and I would suggest that you all do the same. So I'm not pulling my investments, but I'm certainly taking profits and making sure that my risk is mitigated and making sure that I am in position to buy this dip if and when it comes. So with that being said, let's jump into a few articles and videos about this crisis. I think Forbes did a good video recently. It was just a couple days ago where they talk about it. Again, it's one of these outlets that I don't think is taking this situation as seriously as they should be, but I think they do a good job of summing up basically what is happening. So let's just jump into it here and we'll talk off the cuff what's going on.
If China's economy was a dashboard, Evergrande would be the check engine light.
See, I don't think Evergrande's the check engine light. I think the car is going 100 miles an hour straight into a brick wall. And if we don't change course immediately, this could get extremely bad. I don't think that a check engine light is really the correct metaphor for the current perilous situation that's going on.
The country's second largest property developer is over $300 billion in debt. Evergrande stock plummeted over 80% this year, with shares halted on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange this week, pending a, quote, major transaction. State media says the company will sell a majority stake in its property management business for over $5 billion.
Yeah, $5 billion. It's really going to make a dent in the $300 billion that they owe.
In short, Chinese investors are bracing themselves for a world of pain. But what we don't know is how far that pain will spread.
Yes, we do. We know exactly how far that pain will spread. The Chinese and the U.S. economies have been extremely intertwined since the 1970s, today more so than ever. So the idea that China is going to stop it at its borders or that China is going to get hit harder than the U.S., I don't think that is correct. I think that they're both going to get hit probably equally as hard as one another. I don't think that it's going to be disproportionate at all.
The S&P 500 closed at an all-time high today.
The Evergrande...
The background actually kind of looks like my shirt. See that sun there? I got my Raven coin shirt on there. It's the same effect.
The Evergrande story has shown how much of China's rapid economic growth is fueled by real estate. The industry accounts for about 29% of China's GDP.
That's a lot.
But many properties were bought by investors without intention of living in them.
Oh, yeah, that's right. China actually has, look up, China ghost cities. They just have these giant cities that are not populated at all because they're building them speculatively. Insane.
About 20% of China's housing stock is unoccupied. That's space for about 90 million people, enough to house the entire population of France and still have extra. The Chinese Communist Party has been aware of
Look at
this
these criminals.
and created a policy last year called 3 Red Lines. This policy has 3 goals: reduce debt in the property market, crack down on reckless borrowing, and prevent a market correction from turning into a catastrophe. The company suffered a capital crunch, was forced to suspend construction, and delayed payments to suppliers. This leaves many prospective homeowners in limbo, investors holding the bag, and third-party employees not getting paid.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people, these investors, they put in their deposits. Think about it. These people might be like 40 or 50 years old. They saved up all their life to put down a deposit on a home that Evergrande said that they were going to get built for them. And now that deposit is in limbo. It's potentially, they're just basically taking it and stealing it and not ever paying it back or building the property. So we'll have to, that's again an emerging situation. We'll have to see where that goes and if these people actually get their homes built, but it's not looking too good for them.
So, the first big question: how exposed are US, EU, and other global markets to contagion if Evergrande collapses?
Extremely.
To be frank, and I think anyone who tells you differently is lying, nobody knows exactly who holds Evergrande securities.
Well, that's true, but we do know, it's confirmed that BlackRock has an extremely high level of exposure to Evergrande's debt. They're one of the largest buyers, confirmed here on Reuters, of Evergrande's bonds and their debt holdings. So this is again not looking too good. But let's
in the
continue.
United States, we know some names. People have come out with big names like BlackRock have said they
There you
have
go.
some exposure, but we don't know. And I actually think the uncertainty is more dangerous than if we did know. And this is what happened in 2008, 2009 in the United States. Nobody knew who had exposure to the bad debt. And as a consequence,
They all
trading
did.
froze up. And that systemically is much more destructive than a few people going bankrupt.
Lehman
I sort of agree with that assessment, but at the same time, if these people can't pay back their debts, and there's a bunch of companies that are defaulting and not being able to pay back their debts, it's not just like people getting scared or cold feet and pulling their investments. That's part of it too. But the main issue here is the reckless spending, not the fact that investors get scared because of it, because it's all coming to a head and comes crashing down at the end.
Lehman Brothers' role in the 2008 crash is often brought up in media reports as a comparison to Evergrande. But one major difference is Evergrande's current woes were triggered by government policy, and it remains unclear how Beijing would intervene to avert a global crisis, if they even decide to do so.
I think that
They may bail them out, they may not, and I think that the answer to that question will really tell us how big of an effect this will happen. This will have on the global economy. If China ends up bailing out the Evergrande, I think that could sort of mitigate the crisis a little bit. I think we'll still take a large hit from it. But if they just let Evergrande default, and Evergrande can't pay back their bondholders, and then their bondholders can't pay back their stakeholders, I mean, this rabbit hole goes on forever. It's actually insane when you look at it, how many different levels of exposure there are to just this one big liability.
there is a great deal we don't understand. And what we also don't understand is that the leadership in China is not exactly sure how to treat the market economy they have created. For instance, they realized that debt was excessive, and they moved in a very Chinese communist way to stop it. You can't have any more debt. Of course, that doesn't help. That means people who are strung out have no way to unwind.
Second question. How could Evergrande accumulate so much debt without alarming political leadership and regulators sooner? A central
because
character in the Evergrande
the
saga
corporate
is the
leaders
company
are
chairman
part
and
of
founder Hui Kaiyan.
The
Forbes
government.
estimates he is worth 11.5.
If you guys didn't know this, China has this policy where if you become state-sponsored, state-run, if you join the CCP, then you get 0% corporate tax. So it's a giant incentive and a strong arm to get these Chinese corporations basically intertwined and run by the government.
$5 billion, and calculated $8 billion of it is from cash dividends paid since Evergrande's IPO on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange.
He grew up, poor in China, and he's built this company up from the ground. He founded it in 1996, and it became a really successful developer. It built a lot of homes. It created a lot of jobs in China. That's opened a lot of doors for him, and he's been able to get connections and financing for more. And at some point it just got out of control. And he's the chairman of the company. He owns still 77% of its stock. But the issue with that is he can kind of determine the company's corporate governance by himself.
It's been suggested in various media reports that He's political connections and elite status gave investors and creditors faith Beijing would continue to bail out the company even if things went south. But it now appears that patience is running thin.
Too big to fail.
Finally, what does Evergrande tell us about the big picture of China's economy? Well, rapid and continued growth eventually meets its limits, and having a real estate bubble disproportionately drive growth was bound to have consequences.
Whenever there's a boom, people overextend themselves, and China's going to face that. It's not just Evergrande. In fact, a deep worry in this situation is that there are many Chinese companies who have followed that model and are in trouble right now.
Yeah, that's very true. That's one of the articles I wanted to talk about, this Barron's article. There's all these other Chinese real estate developers that are already defaulting on hundreds of millions of dollars, partially because they depend on Evergrande or they're exposed to Evergrande, but other ones, similar business models to Evergrande, are also overextending themselves and have already started to default. So just goes to show you, it's not just the 300 billion that we're talking about here. It's much, much more than that. And 300 billion is very significant in and of itself. I mean, let's, for reference, look up how much the bailout was in 2008. It was $700 billion was the total amount of bailout that the U.S. government had to send to these banks to help them out during the 2008 crisis. So if we're comparing that to the $300 billion, that's just one company, this could get real bad. All right.
That extends the danger not only throughout China, but across the ocean. The objective here for Beijing or any authorities is to ease the system's way out of this problem, not to punish it, not to approach it with a heavy hand.
Whether China moves ahead with that approach remains to be seen, but it's clear the weeks ahead will put the world's second largest economy to the test like never before.
So it's really unclear right now what China's response to this is going to be. We know that Evergrande has until the end of this month, the end of October, to pay back these bonds that they've already missed. Because they were due on September 23rd and September 29th, these first couple $100 million bonds, and they have a 30-day grace period here to pay them back before they are officially defaulted. So only time will tell, guys. I just wanted to make this video to talk about the emerging situation, how I think it's more serious than a lot of media outlets are letting on. And I think that as investors, I'm not pulling my investments, but I'm definitely taking measures to mitigate my risk and protect myself in the event that Evergrande defaults and the economy takes a turn for the worse. Because we all know when the S&P or the Dow takes a 10 or 20% hit, crypto's going to get hit at least twice as hard as that. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But protect yourself, protect your families, and that's really all I want to talk about today. So I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.